Tons of news to discuss in today's video, including the New Jersey Devils still hot after Flames goalie Jacob Markstrom. That deal appears to not be dead. Discussions are ongoing, and we'll see what comes from it. Plus, we also have updates on trade rumors involving the Senators and the Flames. Could there be a match to help both sides? Both have some predominant players on the market. Plus, we're going to talk about the latest around the New York Rangers. We saw a gruesome injury to Blake Wheeler, which could open the door for another reunion in New York for another player. Plus, we have some talk around the Vancouver Canucks as well. News regarding the New York Islanders, the waiver wire, Milan Lucic update regarding his court case. We have a signing as well as a Global Series update returning next year. And Morgan Rielly's suspension appeal is today as well. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As you can tell from the opener, we have a lot to cover here today, so let's dive right in and get started. Let's start with the news from the NHL waiver wire. Yesterday, we saw the Washington Capitals place young forward Matthew Phillips on waivers, and today we found out he was picked up. This is our first waiver claim in a little bit, but the Pittsburgh Penguins, division rival, picks up Phillips. Not too surprising. Kyle Dubas is kind of notorious for taking chances on, I guess, somebody what you'd call like a project player, somebody who appears to have certain skill set, but just having a difficult time realizing it. Look at some of the other moves he's made during his tenure with the Leafs or so far in Pittsburgh. Not real shocked that this is where things went. The Penguins are trying to make a playoff push. They did win last night in Chicago and are certainly, still very much in the mix to get a wild card spot, but it's not a guarantee by any means. They certainly are getting good performance, good production out of some of their top guys, but the surrounding cast is what's been lacking in Pittsburgh this year, at least in my opinion. So we'll see how Phillips does in the Penguins organization. So we also got some other news today. The Boston Bruins forward Milan Lucic and his court case has come to an end. The case against Lucic has been dropped by the prosecutor. So if you recall back a few months back, he took a leave of absence, I believe is what the Bruins ended up calling it. They call it an indefinite leave of absence. Lucic was accused of a domestic situation involving his wife. Apparently, she refused to testify, which I believe made the 911 call not able to be used. And the prosecution felt they did not have enough of a case. So they dropped the charges. So Lucic is off the hook that way. There was comment earlier in the day that Lucic was hoping to return to the Bruins, that he wanted to play, but the Bruins did put out a statement a few hours after this news broke indicating that Milan Lucic is going to remain on leave from the Boston Bruins for the remainder of the seasons while he continues to work on things personally. So it doesn't sound like there's going to be a return there. He's on a 1-year contract based on the fact that this year did not go very well. To be honest, I don't think he was playing the greatest. When everything went down, he didn't have a great start to the season. Then he's missed a big chunk of it with this. Getting older, I kind of wonder if this might be it for him. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but certainly Luch is, like I said, off the hook legally, but he won't be returning to the Bruins during the season here. We also saw a signing in Nashville today. They've extended Michael McCarron on a 2-year contract extension with a total value of $1.8 million. That gives him $900K per season. Of course, McCarron, once upon a time, was actually a pretty high first-round pick of the Montreal Canadiens and has carved out a nice role for himself with Nashville. Not anything like the one that he was projected or likely would have expected to get upon being like a middle first-round pick in his draft year, but he's certainly at least been able to carve out something for himself in the NHL and has fit nicely with the Predators. So that's a well-earned 2-year extension. Some injury and roster moves around the NHL. Start with the New York Rangers. We saw a pretty gruesome injury last night to veteran Blake Wheeler. Blake Wheeler did have an ugly fall on the ice. Definitely a leg or knee injury of some sort. He had a really difficult time getting up. When he did get up, he couldn't put any weight on his leg. Got off the ice, which thankfully he wasn't too far from the exit. And then getting down the tunnel to the room. I believe they had to bring a stretcher and help him get the rest of the way. So it did not look good at all. And the Rangers did announce today that he's going to be going on long-term injured reserve. Several reporters chimed in, or I guess that information came out. I don't think it came directly from the Rangers. I know the New York Post had it first, and Larry Brooks. A lot of other reporters chimed in on it afterwards, and he is expected to miss the rest of the year. And playoffs, I don't think are completely written off, but it really would boil down to how deep they go. It sounds like it's going to be a several months type of recovery. So if the Rangers go, I don't know, it's just a speculation, but it'd probably have to be at least a couple of rounds to have any chance. Even then, it's far from a guarantee that Wheeler could come back. Obviously signed a 1-year deal with the Rangers after getting bought out in Winnipeg. Got off to a slow start, but had been doing better there. Given his age and everything and the seriousness of the injury, no guarantees that this is it for Wheeler, but it does cross your mind. I know teammate Jacob Trouba was a little bit emotional about it when asked, and it's kind of what was going through his mind. Of course, he knew Blake Wheeler for a long time, and Trouba and Wheeler both were in the Jets organization for a long stretch there, and that's where Trouba started before he made his way to the Big Apple. And Wheeler was his captain there for a long time, and of course he's the captain with the Rangers, and Wheeler came along on a 1-year deal, so I know he was emotional, wondering if, is he going to come back from this, or could this be the end? So you hate to see somebody end their career on that note. We saw that last year with Derek Brassard, former Ranger and Ottawa Senator, who came back for one last season with the Sens and ended the season with a really brutal leg injury. And he's never formally announced his retirement, but he never signed anywhere. So he said he wouldn't play anywhere else but Ottawa, as he wanted to stay at home, do the same type of thing that Giroux's doing, and never materialized. So I'm guessing it was probably not in the cards health-wise, but we want to wish the best here for Blake Wheeler on a recovery and hope this isn't the end. Hopefully he can return to play and go out on his own terms. The Coyotes goalie Connor Ingram is going to miss some time. He is considered day-to-day. They've recalled goalie Matt Valletta. The Calgary Flames today recalled Dryden Hunt, and they sent down Dustin Wolf and Cole Schwindt back to the minors. Dan Vladar has been activated and is ready to make the return. In Ottawa today, they returned defenseman Max Gannett, who was recalled for yesterday's game against the Ducks on an emergency basis. They are expecting Artem Zub and Jake Sanderson, who've been out with injuries recently, both to return and be available for tomorrow's contest against the Chicago Blackhawks. Vancouver Canucks forward Nils Hoglander has also received a call from the Department of NHL Player Safety. He has been fined for a cross-check that took place in last night's game against the Detroit Red Wings. Of course, we saw last night as well, Canucks defenseman Nikita Zadorov kind of mocked Jake Wallman with where he likes to do the gritty dance as a celebration. He did it again a couple times now against the Canucks. And you know what? He was able to kind of sort of get a little revenge, make fun of him for it, but he didn't have to cross-check anybody to the head. It was nice to see, It goes to show that if somebody does something on the ice as a celebratory thing, or, something that's kind of deemed to be, aggravating or taunting, or, just kind of going over the top of the celly, like we saw with the Ridley Gregg slap shot last week, you don't have to react that way. You can do things in other manners to kind of get your point across, let the other team know you don't like it, chirp them, in this case, make fun of them, and kind of move on. Like, you don't have to get, so angry that you lose your composure and cross-check somebody to the head in that result. Speaking of which, here Morgan Rielly was appealing his suspension and was having his hearing today with Commissioner Gary Bettman in New York City. Rielly was bringing, I believe he was going to have a rep from the NHLPA. His agent would be there as well. And of course, the league would be represented by Gary Bettman, probably Bill Daly. I'm not sure who else will be in the room. I believe this meeting's already concluded by the time I'm recording this video. In the past, whenever Gary Bettman's had these types of hearings to hear players appeal for suspensions of this nature, then he's usually rendered his ruling within 3 days. I know in Canada it's a long weekend, so Monday's an upcoming holiday. I'm not sure exactly when we'll get the decision, but I would suspect probably by Monday, if not Tuesday morning at the latest, we'll get the decision from Gary Bettman on whether or not he's reducing it. At this point, Morgan Rielly's already missed 2 games. The third game would come Saturday as they play the Anaheim Ducks. The fourth game would then come Monday when they do battle with the St. Louis Blues. And the fifth game, if things don't change and it's held up, comes Wednesday as they do battle in the first half of a back-to-back against the Coyotes, followed by the Golden Knights the next day. So clearly, there is some hope, I guess, based on listening to Toronto reporters, Chris Johnson, that it's probably best case scenario. It might get reduced by one game, or it's going to be upheld. Those are the two most likely outcomes here. I know the NHLPA really wants to see, I guess, the evidence, the rationale, look at all the data that they've kind of put together to suggest that this should be a 5-game ban. The one thing I don't like, and I understand the PA sticking up for their player, in this case, who they feel was, wrongly punished. But, and thankfully in this case, Ridley Gregg was not seriously injured. I mean, I think he was banged up a little bit, but didn't miss time. But we've seen situations where suspensions have been appealed, and the player that was the victim was seriously hurt. And what about that guy? You never hear of the NHLPA defending the victim and pushing for more punishment against the guy who did the crime. That part blows my mind. I understand they got to stick up for their players and their people. That's what they're there for as a union. But maybe stick up for both sides. I think this case is a little different, where Ridley Gregg doesn't really need anybody to stick up for him. But there's plenty of other cases where you do, and you never see that. So that really surprises me for sure. We are expecting some other news. We don't know exactly what it is, but we've seen reporters like Dave Pagnotta indicate that there is some news coming regarding the New York Islanders. We don't know what it's going to be, but it's believed that they're going to be announced to be hosting some sort of NHL event, likely in the 26 or 27 seasons. We don't know exactly how this is all going to work. It's believed that in 2026, even though there will be an Olympic break and NHL players will be going to the Olympics, that they're still going to hold some form of an all-star game. So it could be that. It could be an NHL draft. Like, I know that the draft format is going to change, but there's still going to be a portion of this that happens in an NHL venue. We don't know what it is, but obviously this weekend has the Stadium Series stuff going on in that area, so I'm not sure exactly what's going to come, but expect some Islanders news regarding an NHL event and then over the course of this weekend. The Global Series is coming back. No big surprise. It seems to be doing extremely well. So we're going to get games every year. The 24-25 season is going to see a few teams heading overseas. It's going to start with the Buffalo Sabres, who will start their campaign during the towards the preseason, towards the end of it, in Munich, Germany. They will play, I think, 1 or 2 exhibition games. Don't have the full details, but the Sabres are going to Munich. Obviously, JJ Peterka of German nationality will be on display there and play for the home crowd. And then after that, they're going to be meeting up with the New Jersey Devils and kicking off the NHL season in Prague for a couple of games to start the season. So obviously they'll be in Germany, they'll be in Prague, and then later in November, we're getting the Dallas Stars and the Florida Panthers. We'll be doing a couple of games in Tampere, Finland. So obviously the Stars and the Panthers, great selections to go to Finland. They have some great Finnish players on those teams. So they will go over and participate in the Global Series there. So some more great action in that sense. I would suspect the season after, we're probably going to see Sweden again and probably some other countries that they seem to rotate a lot of them year to year there. So we'll see where that goes. On to the trade rumor section of the video. I know one name that keeps coming up by various NHL reporters is Boone Jenner of the Blue Jackets, and I don't think anybody's really come out and said that the Jackets were shopping him. That's not the indication that anybody has had. But their belief is that the Jackets have been getting a lot of inquiries and a lot of calls. We know there's a weak center market, for example, for UFA rentals on that position. Obviously, we've seen a couple of guys like Lindholm and Monahan already be moved well ahead of the deadline. There could be more that strike here soon to get ahead of it too. We'll have to wait and see. But John Davidson, who's now the interim general manager after parting ways with Jarmo Kekalainen, was on the Jeff Merrick show today, and he made it very clear that Boone Jenner is not going anywhere. So he said that this Columbus team is obviously going to have to kind of retool here a little bit. He didn't use that exact word, but essentially they're going to make some changes in that they have a lot of young talent, but they need some veterans. And he really praised guys like Werenski and Jenner. And he said, Boone Jenner is a guy that he doesn't want to be traded, and that the Jackets absolutely do not want to move him. So I do not see that happening. Now, as I mentioned before, when managers and presidents speak to the media, you have to take what they say with a grain of salt, because they're not going to come out and reveal all the plans and who they're going to trade and what they'd be willing to accept. That's usually not something you ever see. So in that case, but just the way he was saying it and how emphatic he was, I just really get the sense that that's not going to happen. So if we hear any more rumors about Boone Jenner, it's probably not going to come to be. He was asked too, Merrick asked him, like, how often do you get calls on this guy? And he said, we get inquiries on Boone Jenner all the time. A lot of teams really like him. A lot of teams think he'd be a great fit there. So not a surprise. They love him on and off the ice, but doesn't seem like a trade is really anything they're interested in whatsoever. Of course, like I said, the New York Rangers are another team to watch. There was already speculation they were looking for at least one center, maybe two, of course, with Phillips being out. And now they have a big absence on the wing with Blake Wheeler going down and being done for the year. So clearly that's a big problem. So I know there's been some speculation that maybe they move a guy like Kakko in a trade for maybe a bigger name that can come in and maybe not only come in for the playoff push here, but maybe extend and stay with the Rangers. And that seems less likely now. Could they still add on the wing? I do think that's possible. Doesn't mean that they won't find a player that they can keep, but I don't know that it's as likely. You're not going to see a guy like Kakko go. They're already, depleted a bit on the wings. Trading a guy like Kakko, who is still a very young player with a high ceiling that they believe in, just doesn't seem to make nearly as much sense anymore. Not that it made a ton of sense before, but it makes even less now. So don't expect that, but the Rangers are still very much in the mix here. The one name that keeps coming up, especially that started reappearing in the rumor mill here with the Wheeler injury, is Tarasenko out of Ottawa. We don't know yet what his future holds. Like I said, reports indicate from what his own comments were and what we've heard from Ottawa media that there is interest to stay, but it also boils down to what that contract would look like on an extension and what could they get on the market. Like, it's not a clear-cut, definitive answer. And Tarasenko has full say here because he has a no-move clause. So, obviously, would he want to go back to New York? I would think he'd be interested in that. They're a top team in the league. He had a good experience there last spring. I can't see why he would say no to them, and clearly might be interested in staying, because the belief was with him changing agents recently that he would want to try to work out an extension so he could stay put in one spot here for at least a few years. So we'll see where that goes. But could a Tarasenko reunion in New York make sense? I do think it's possible. The Vancouver Canucks, apparently, according to their media and Rick Dhaliwal, continue to push for Chris Tanev. There's still a big target of theirs, but it's going to be difficult and very challenging for them to meet the asking price. The Flames are trying to get a first-round pick out of this player, or at the very least a second-round pick and a really good prospect, which is going to prove challenging for the Canucks to do, especially after giving up a first-round pick in the Lindholm deal, which is why when they tried to do one deal for both players, it was just not going to work out because it was way too costly. It's believed the Oilers are pushing for Tanev too, as well as the Dallas Stars. There was some talk about Ottawa, and I haven't heard that they're out on Tanev, but I think that they're not going to push as hard as some of these teams will, because they want Tanev more for the future than they do now. So I think Tanev is a player their interest remains high on, but it's going to be a case of revisiting that in the summer if he hits UFA status. There's other reports as well. I know I've heard it from Dave Pagnotta and some other guys too, that the Calgary Flames and New Jersey Devils deal for Jacob Markstrom is not dead. Talks continue. They continue to both send a lot of scouts to each other's games. So there's still a strong belief out there that they'd like to find a way to make this work. Now, when it comes to salary retention, where that's believed to be the sticking point before, I would suggest that maybe the only way to fix that, because I'm not sure Calgary ownership is going to improve a retention on that, where it has multiple years on the contract, but maybe a third team comes in. Maybe they, it changes the asking price, but if they really want this player, they might have to pony up and pay a third team, like whether it be the Blackhawks or somebody with ample space here, to retain some of that money and reduce that cap hit further for them, so they don't have to do it in Calgary. So we'll have to see, but that's not a dead deal. There's continue on to discussions, and they would really like to see. I mean, UC Saros' name seems to be picking up steam too. I'm sure the Devils will keep an eye on that and maybe turn their attention there if this is not going to work out. But I've also heard some smoke about the LA Kings kind of being involved in Saros as well. So we'll see. Going to be interesting around some of the top goalies leading into the deadline. And Kevin Weeks is also reporting that the Calgary Flames not only are taking calls and getting a lot of interest on Noah Hannafin and Chris Tanev, who are pending UFAs, but they're also getting a ton of interest in Rasmus Andersson. Now, Anderson's drawing a lot of interest. Really shouldn't surprise anybody. He's a really good top 4 and some teams' top pair defenseman on the right side, making $4.5 million for another couple of years. Very attractive contract for what he brings. Has lots of elements of the game that's positive, whether it be on the offensive or defensive side. I know that one team that came up immediately on social media as maybe being a link there would be the Senators, who are really desperate to find a right side defenseman to complement that D-core. Andersson could be the answer. There was belief before that I had interest in Mackenzie Weegar, but of course he just signed an 8-year deal. As much as in Ottawa is home for him, so I'd have no doubt that he'd have some interest to go there if a trade was going to come together. But at the same time, Andersson might be a great option too. At the same time, the price tag to get Weegar out of Calgary was probably going to be more than Ottawa wanted to pay. But there's still uncertainty about the future of Jacob Chychrun. We don't know what's going to happen there. I really don't think the Sens are actively looking to move him at all. The latest intel says that essentially they're getting calls because he's not signed long-term yet. And that's really all there is to it. The only, I think, real reason the Sens might consider a move is to balance out the lefties and righties on their team. I mean, on the left side, they've got Chabot, they've got Sanderson, they've got Chychrun. I've said before, I think I would consider moving Chabot and keeping Sanderson and Chychrun myself. But, Chabot's a big part of that dressing room. He's going to alternate captain, been there a long time, longest tenured guy in the team. He's a beloved teammate. Not that Chychrun isn't, but it might be really tough in that room to move a guy like Chabot, where Chychrun hasn't been there as long, but at the same time, he's also basically calls Ottawa home with he's got a lot of ties to the community there, and he bought a house. He wants to stay. He loves it there. There's no doubt. But from a business perspective, there's new owner, new GM, and, they got to get this team, taking steps forward. And Rasmus Andersson, where he can provide a lot of similar things that Chychrun can and play the right side, it just might help them balance things out. So it's not a perfect deal, but they make similar money. They have similar contracts, not a great deal of difference in age. There's a lot to like about both guys. Could that be a deal that benefits both clubs? I might be sad to hear on both sides of the possibility of that player, whether it be Andersson or Chychrun, being moved. I know fans love both guys in both cities, but could there be a mutually beneficial deal there? That's something interesting to watch as we get closer towards the NHL deadline. So let me know your thoughts on all today's news or rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.